is here to stay. The critical question for the West is how to use it for the good, altruistically, arguably, how to use it for the good of humankind. The issues for him weren't academic curricula, they were about the human condition and what we do with our knowledge in the human condition. Rich versus poor. This is the main issue of the Industrial Revolution. C.P. Snow gave a dire warning. About what was going to happen. This rings true 50 years today. Page 46, and I quote, "Since the gap between the rich countries and the poor can be removed, it will be. If we are short-sighted, inept, incapable either of goodwill or enlightened self-interest, then it may be removed to the accompaniment of war and starvation. But removed it will be. Removed it will be." And he offers solutions. First he says, you know, we become specialized. That's a fact. Academic curricula become specialized. We have departments of physics and English and geography and whatever. He's not arguing, you know, to go back and despecialize. He said specialization is here to stay of curricula in universities. But what he argues for is an intellectual bilingualism. At least we need to talk. At least we need to talk. We need to talk. Talking across the disciplines is a path to what he calls the path to wisdom. He displays a rather pointed accusation against the elite in the management structure of the powers of the world, and he names them at that point in time. The UK, the US, USSR, and he points to, at that time, the growing presence of China. The path to wisdom is how we need to train people in the key elite positions of power. It's his way in which the cultural divide can help solve the issues of world hunger, of poverty, etc., etc. Now, what happened? That's the argument. That's his argument. What happened? Well, there was a lot of reaction to it, a lot of very positive reaction. He delivered the lecture at what's called the Senate House. Let's see here. Okay, this is a characterization, by the way, of Sir Charles with the cultural divide from Scientific American, which commemorated. And this is the actual Senate House in Cambridge. Senate House, I don't know how many of you visited England or particularly visited Cambridge, but the Senate House is obviously a very stately building right in a central area called the King's Parade, outside of what's we call the King's Court. And he delivered it there. It was part of a lecture series that's, dare I say, older than the U.S. It goes back to the late 1600s. The Reed Lecture was named after Sir Christopher Reed, who was a high counselor in the court system in times past in England. And it was endowed by Sir Christopher Reed, and it's morphed many times over the years. Has quite a heritage to it. In fact, the stage was set right there for this debate between, the two cultures, when Matthew Arnold, a literary critic, in 1882 gave the Reed Lecture with the title Literature and Science. Matthew Arnold was responding to a public lecture that T.H. Huxley had given in 1880, involved science and culture. Matthew Arnold was a literary critic. Now, literary criticism in this day and time had the same, we might say, the same role as being a scientist. Literature and literary critic are two different things. Literary critic is one who studies, analyzes, criticizes literature. The literature is the data, the critic is the scientist, in a sense. Here is C.P. Snow in later years, and this was taken from a commentary in the British newspaper, The Telegraph, from May 5th, 2009. This is Lord Snow. And this was his immediate, well not immediate, 3 years later immediate, critic, the famous Alfred Levis, who also was a literary critic in Cambridge. Now, Levis waited several years and went on the offensive. He went on the offensive in a way that those of us in academia would not do to our colleagues, publicly or even privately. He gave a lecture by invitation called the Richmond Lecture. He was invited to do this by the students, his students, by the way, at Downing College, Cambridge. He was a fellow, which basically he was involved in tutoring the students. Now, well, they invited him to give the annual Richmond Lecture in 1962. And I have an original of that, actually, which a colleague of mine loaned me. The Two Cultures, with a question mark, the significance of C.P. Snow. Now, this book reeks of vitriolic odors. This is the sharpest ad hominem attack I've seen of anyone, professional academe, in my lifetime in academia. It's so bad that the publisher, Chatham and Windus, actually contacted Snow ahead of time to get his legal permission to publish this. And to his credit, he did not object. To his credit, he did not object. He wanted the issue out there for debate. If you open up any page of this, well, first of all, he muses here about going into Cambridge University bookstore after 3 years and quote, thought it my duty to read this. And he paid 3 6pence, Joe, for his copy. Well, I paid the 50th anniversary, I paid £12, which is about $19 at the present exchange rate here. If you open this thing up, almost any page has comments like this, and I quote, "The judgment I have come out with is that not only is he not a genius, his intellect is undistinguished as it might possible to be." Levis's contempt was total. Was total. He says here, and I want to Snow is as intellectually undistinguished as it's possible to be. He exhibits utter lack of intellectual distinction and an embarrassing vulgarity of style. I'm quoting. I quote, "The intellectual nullity is what constitutes any difficulty there may be in dealing with Snow's panoptic pseudo-cogencies." Next page here. Snow is, of course, and I'm reading this very Snow is, of course, no, I can't say that. He isn't. Snow thinks of himself as a novelist. This is how this reads. He goes on and on and on and on with this vitriolic sputum that keeps coming out. So that was the initial major reaction. A lot of people gobbled up what he had to say. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people didn't. Now, I've never taken the time to actually read any of Snow's novels. He wrote lots of novels. They're quite popular, and there's lots of comments on them. Levis thought they were poo-poo, but a lot of people liked them. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people didn't. But in the end, the stage was set. The stage was set, and it lingers on 50 years. And some of the recent commentators have wondered, well, is this notion of two cultures, is it displaying what we might call concept fatigue, to use someone else's term? And I don't think it has. I don't think it has. It's the kind of lecture, the kind of book, the kind of discourse, the kind of presentation, the kind of personage that each of you in here can read and get a point that touches you, that touches a resonance chord. And that's what Sandra and Joe and Eric and I, and so on, others have been trying to do at HSTs, to get the students to read it in a way that strikes a chord which hits home with me. For me, the word elitism keeps standing out because Snow never forgot his roots. In 1964, he was granted a lifetime peerage. He became Baron of Leicester. It was a life peerage. And I can't help but think his mom and daddy would have been proud of him. To know that he is someone from that borderline between the middle class and the lower class, who made a name for himself, but yet never forgot his roots and was ever so humble to say that the cultural divide exists, it's affecting human well-being, it's being used or abused to train the kinds of people that make the decisions that promote Western society, that promote the divide between the rich and the poor. I had the pleasure to have a little to discuss C.P. Snow with someone who's his contemporary, who is his contemporary. A close colleague of mine and friend for about 20-some odd years now, John Waterlow, knew Snow. They were a member of the same social club, the Savile Club in London. John Waterlow is the kind of person that C.P. Snow would resonate with, and vice versa. John Waterlow was just completely enamored, like a lot of people were, by what Snow had to say. John Waterlow grew up in that elite in that class, if you will. Not the middle class, but the upper class. His parents were in the diplomatic corps around in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He's 93 years old, by the way. He's 93. And we're sitting in his garden in Notting Hill, smoking our pipes, having a beverage, and discussing C.P. Snow. How English can one get? Right, Jeff? How English can one get? And he's very active, still publishing at 93. Let's hope, Victor, that we're still publishing at 93.
It'll be vertical.
And he said that C.P. Snow was a figure that you respected, but someone who was yet humble, someone who had that air about him. And I've been to the Savile Club with John, and he showed me one of the mantelpieces of one of the fireplaces where he could still see C.P. Snow there today with his arm up there, quote, holding court. He had that kind of aura and respectability about him. Yet John didn't really like his novels. But yet John came from that background. His parents hobnobbed with Harold Nicholson and Vita Sackville West. They were in that mood, in those intellectual, government, civil service, literary circles. John went to Eton. He then went to Cambridge and studied classics, and then went into medicine, and then had a very distinguished career as a nutritionist, founding the WHO sites in the West Indies for the poor. For the poor. And John loaned me his original copy of F.R. Leavis's book. A little bit yellow, it's about 50 years old now. He also loaned me, it's a bit yellow now too, a copy of a letter that he sent to the London Times in 1963, giving his own response to C.P. Snow. I'll read the whole thing. I'll just close, give you the last paragraph, and see how this resonates with the message that I feel that C.P. Snow was trying to say. I'm quoting from John's letter entitled The Two Cultures, addressed to the editor of the Times of London, and I quote, the point stressed in the previous discourse on this is of fundamental importance. The role of the imagination, the non-rational intuitive process in the development of scientific thought. It is surely this which is the basic link between what are described as the two cultures. This is not a theoretical matter only. Reflection upon the rarity and difficulty of the imaginative process teaches us humility, a quality that tends to be submerged nowadays by the prestige of science. I do not think there would be much of a gap between representatives of two cultures if each approaches the other with humility, aware of the limitations of his own knowledge and experiences. Yours faithfully, John C. Waterlow. Joe is going to now give you the last 50 years. What's happened? What's the echo of the boom? But before I step down, let me just tell you, speaking of humility, it's been a very humbling experience, this Tennessee boy living in Cambridge. And to be there this past summer for not only the CP Snow stuff, but of course, everything Darwin, the 2009 Darwin Festival, which celebrated, well, the 150th anniversary of his book, 200th anniversary of his actual book. It's a big deal there. And they had people from all over the world speaking about Darwin and Darwiniana and the impact of Darwin on every aspect of human existence. I was there just an